thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this. I'm also, we're out of Nashville. We participate in our chapter there, and so just want to say thank you for having us here. We've got a couple people that are here. The most important person that is here is Dylan in here already? He's not in here. He's still out there at the booth. Dylan Costello is our local Raleigh. As we grow into this marketplace, he's the guy that is working this territory. So if you haven't met Dylan Costello, please stop by and see him. He's the face of 5iron here. Just a brief about us. I understand that sometimes these things are all about the companies. That's not what this is about tonight. Tonight, we're hoping as you'll learn more about our company. People ask us about the name all the time. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Our thought and concept and principle is that our company is an everyday iterative company, which means every day we get better together. We believe that about our partnerships. We believe that about the places that we live and work. We want to make sure that when we walk in, when we walk out, we were better together, right? We've learned and we've grown together incrementally. So I'm not going to advertise this tonight. We are a cyber threat detection and response, do managed detection and response, but after that you won't hear me say it. If there are slides that sound like it might be a small advertisement for us, it's just an anomaly. Whether you get us or you have somebody else doing it, the point is it's important, right? Tonight what we're hoping to do is earn a spot at your table, earn a spot and build relationships. I believe I've mentioned I'm from Nashville, and we believe that business still happens at a handshake level. Business still matters at a personal relationship. A look a man in the eye, walk a mile with him, and that's what we're hoping to do here tonight. Invest into this community, invest into you guys. Hopefully when you leave here tonight, you left with at least some thought provocation. Maybe you've changed something in your life. Maybe you've changed something in your career, but I'm hoping that you leave here tonight in a better place than when you came in, or at least with some better ideology. You're going to hear me use a lot of analogies tonight. I'm a father of 4, so that's how I try to teach my kids, and also I've got people in the company, and I mentor a lot of young men, and so I'm a big analogy guy. I'm former military, so you'll hear some military analogies as well. Did you hear about this thing about you've heard some of these stories, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing, and if you'll humor me for a second, envision that it's you in the woods, in a forest. Maybe you're on a mission. Maybe you're trying to get somewhere, and you believe that you should be headed due north, and that's exactly where you should be going. You've been working for a while to head due north. Every now and then you feel like you're a little bit, am I still on due north? You have to check a compass or a waypoint, and you just feel like, right? And there's the thought process, and we call that kind of tactically speaking. We're tactically moving. We're moving forward, but we're only doing that at a line of sight, right? We're only doing that as far as we can see. If I could give you a peek above the trees, if we could pull you up at that 30,000 or just above the tree canopy, right? And you could see due north, and you could see ahead, and you could see, oh, there's a huge ravine, a river, and some other things I'm going to have to cross. Maybe I still want to go due north, but I want to change my path, and I want to go this way because I want to avoid those things, right? What I'm hoping tonight is to do just that for you, is to give you a peek above the canopy, to give you a peek above the top of the trees, and maybe help you change your course. Maybe you're not changing it completely, but maybe you're going to take a little bit different path, right? And so that's the thought behind today's presentation. So I read an article recently that I thought was very interesting, and the link's up here, you can see it. But it said it was cybersecurity blog. It said boardroom perspective. Are companies still seeing cybersecurity as a grudge purchase or an investment? And I thought that was interesting. As you guys heard in the intro, I've been a CISO, I've been a CIO, I've been a COO, I've been a CEO. So I started my career in the early 90s at a company called Nortel, which no longer exists, but Northern Telecom, and I was an engineer there. So I've risen throughout. And I will tell you that I've been at companies where I can tell you for a fact that management and executives saw this as a grudge purchase. It's just they call it what? What's the word? Necessary evil, right? Cyber's a necessary evil. We got to feed the beast. We got to do our part, right? And I'm hoping that tonight, and I know when I speak to broad crowds, I know that there's engineers in the room, there's CISOs in the room, there's CIOs, there's even some CEOs. I've met a few of you tonight, right? I'm hoping that I can give you a little bit of direction for both, and that we somehow come towards the middle, because if you see this as a grudge purchase and you are investing in cyber and you're going down this path, as a necessary evil, that's exactly what you're going to get out of it, right? And I'm telling you right now, 2025, you guys all see the news. I'm not going to spread a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt tonight, but you're seeing the news. You understand the world we live in, right? We understand that this is a $1 trillion market now, and that people are in the news every single day, right? You guys are all in cyber. We've heard the old saying, it's not if, right? It's correct. We have to get it right 100% of the time. They have to get it right one time, right? So we're going to talk through this tonight because I want to change your perspective. I want to give you, again, that peek above the trees, above the canopy. Hint, if you're not sure if you guys see this, if you're putting more than money into it, you're probably treating it as an investment, right? So I do want to stop and just say, sometimes you say housekeeping, and hey, some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. There are table stakes to be in cyber, right? You're not going to hear me talk tonight about next-gen firewalls or shiny boxes or things like that, but quite the opposite. But make no mistake about it, those are the table stakes. So you've got to have next-gen firewalls. You've got to have EDR. You've got to have email protection. You've got to have these things, right? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in those things. I'm saying those are table stakes. And if you do not have those things already in place, well, then you'll know what your perspective and your focus is going to be. It's get those minimal things and get your table stakes in place. But tonight, I'm going to assume that most of you have table stakes in place, right? Because you're still employed. So I want to talk to you about focus. And I'm going to weave, mostly this is professional, but I believe there's some components here for you to see personally as well, right? That hopefully you guys understand. Focus is what is up for grabs, right? Focus is something that really translates to the difference between success and not success. If we focus, you hear, if you got kids in ball, what do we tell them? Focus on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. Focus, right? In cybersecurity and in our lives, everything is competing for our focus. Specifically and especially in cybersecurity, right? Everything, right? You pick up any tablet right now, look at your phones right now, pick some article. If you do cybersecurity, right, you're going to hear about the Y2K problems coming up again, about quantum computing, and are we going to be able to do, what are we going to do? There's going to be a gap between quantum computers that can break crypto, and we're going to have this gap, and we got to worry about that. We got to worry about adversary in the middle attacks. What are we doing about adversary in the middle? We got to look at NDR and MDR and XDR, and right? And if we follow this path, we're following a lot of shiny things and a lot of things. And the industry, don't get me wrong, the industry who make all these shiny boxes are going to continue to perpetuate that. Because again, why? Why are the bad guys trying to steal from us? Because of money, right? Why are the shiny object guys trying to sell us more stuff? Because of the money, right? And we're stuck in the middle as the guys trying to fight the good fight, right? I want to give you an analogy and a thought to help you understand focus. Hopefully everybody in here understands sound stages, soundboards. You've been at a production or a church, and they've got the big soundboard, right? And they've got all the dials, and there'll be I don't know, the bigger the venue, the bigger the soundboard, right? But I want you to visualize that for a second, and I want you to visualize that there's, let's just say 20 dials here, and one does the house monitors, and one does the stage monitors, and one does the back, and one, right, and all these things, right? What we end up doing in our lives and in our personal lives and our professional lives is we tend to juggle so many balls. We try to keep up. We'll do one of everything. We end up sliding all of them forward just a little bit, right? You've heard jack of all trades, master of. I used to think that was a compliment. I mean, I thought about it and said, wait a second. I'm not sure I want to be a jack, and I'd rather be considered as a master of something. And the point is if you focus, if all we're doing is if we're just spending money, if we're just doing all the things, if we're just buying one of everything, all we're doing is we're only amplifying the noise, right? Same thing in your lives, guys. Those of you, trust me, 4 children at our house, we got all the things. Right? We got one of everybody. We got dance, we got ballet, we've got my little boys in, I didn't even know you could do this, ninja gymnastics, everything, right? We're one of everything. They're in plays, they're in sports, and it's sometimes, You know, my wife and I get the kids down at night and we grab a glass of wine or bourbon and we meet in the living room. It's like a welcome, Jeremy. You know, sit down and like, welcome. You know, how do we get here? You know, after one glass, you're like, let's go to bed, do it again. We get up and we never really move the needles, right? We just keep pushing the sound up. And so what I'm going to try to help you guys talk through tonight is focus. If we can focus on one channel, if we could focus on one thing and make that sound perfect, right? Why wouldn't we want to do that? Reduce the noise, focus on one, do that in our lives, do that in our professional lives, right? I read another article that has really impacted me, and anytime something impacts me, I share it with everybody I know, and my children, God bless them, right? I would have told you a dad joke tonight, but it looks like you guys have got lots of dad jokes here. So, I'm sure you guys have seen, you guys know who Warren Buffett is. He's got something called the 25-5 concept, and I'm going to probably butcher this, so go out and look it up. But I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of this. Warren Buffett is said in this story to have been walking to his private jet, and there's only a few things that Warren Buffett still lives like he's 1955 and making $12 an hour. But he does have a jet, and he said he was walking to his jet, and his pilot was there, and this pilot's got all kinds of accolades, and he's one of the best pilots, as you can imagine, if you're going to be Warren Buffett's pilot, you know. And he said to the guy, he said, hey, I must be doing something wrong. And he said, what do you mean? The pilot said, what do you mean? He goes, I must be doing something wrong because you're still here. Why are you still here? You're very talented. Why are you still working for me? What is it you want to do with your life? Got the guy thinking, he started talking. He said, what I want you to do is I want you to go home and I want you to write down 25 things that you want to accomplish in your life before you die. Right? 25 things. I want you to write those 25 things down on a piece of paper. And supposedly the story goes that he went and did that, and the next time he saw him, he goes, how's that list going? He goes, it's going good. I got 25 down. He goes, so I want you to take, out of the 25, I want you to circle the topmost 5. Boil it down to 5 things. Just give me 5 things. If nothing else on that list gets done, 5, right? So next time he sees him, how's it going? He goes, I'm focused on the 5. You're absolutely right. You've kicked me in the tail. I'm really going to start doing this. And so he said, and what about the other 20? And he said, well, I'm still doing a little bit on those as well. I'm still dragging those along. But he said, you don't get it. He said, once you identify the 5, the 20 become the avoid at all cost list. And so I want you to think about that for a minute because, again, going back to the dials, right? We tend to be list people. We tend to get the 25, and then we focus on the 25. And again, all we're doing is amplifying, and we're not really, we have a saying that kind of drives me crazy, and that's kick the can. You guys heard that saying? You just kick the can down the road, or you save this problem for another day, or you gain a little bit to get the noise out of your hair, and you'll deal with that another time, right? It's not efficient, and it's not productive to keep doing that. And in life, we tend to be creatures of the path of least resistance, right? So what I'm going to talk to you tonight is about the 5 things that I think you should be considering. Again, a peek above the canopy. Are you focused on the right 5 things? Do you even know what the right 5 things should be, right? And so I want to talk to you about that, but I want you to think about this both professionally and personally, that this concept of the 20, right? There's a line here that says, he was proving a point that once you boil it down and say, these are the 5 things, the 20, and put another way, is they become the enemy of your success, right? Those 20 become his words were avoid at all cost list, right? Now, when you think about the things you've got in your career right now, all the things that you've got on your to-do plate, right? Each of you have one at work. You've got things that you go to meetings with. You've got things you report against. Is there just 5? Or do you have more like 20 or 25 or even more? Right? And do you find that it's month end, quarter end, year end, and you're still working on those same? I go back and look at some of my meetings from a year ago, and I look at the notes I've taken from a year ago meetings. If you've got tablets now, right, that's the great thing about it. You can go back, and I look at things that are still there. We're still talking about this a year later. You know what that means? It means I've been running in place, kicking that can, dialing the noise up, but really doing nothing. And getting nothing done is the enemy. Here's what we're talking about. So if we leave here tonight, we leave here this year, and we get 5 things done, right? I want to give you maybe a little bit different perspective. How do you win a football game? Right? Well, right now, all of you are thinking about different things, but depending on what level you understand football and love football, and people are talking about the best offense and the best defense, and if you have the best defense and the best offense, and right? But if you boil it all down, the way that you win a football game is first downs. It's impossible to lose a football game. Now, if the other guys are good at first downs, it's going to be a hell of a game. But the way you win a football game is first downs. You cannot lose, right? Forget about all the fancy pass. You pass it this way, I'll run back this way, you pass it to me, and then while they're looking over here, we'll pass this way and let's do a flea flicker, you know. First downs, guys. If you can get another first down and another first down and another first down, and if all you focus on is first downs, guess what? Touchdown. You win the game. Every time. If all you focus on is the next first down. So, these are some things to think about personally, right? We're going to mostly focus on cyber now, but what are the 5 that you have in your life? What are the 5 that you have for your personal life? What are the 5 things you have professionally? So, we started this earlier and we talked about it's not if, it's when. And if we know that concept is true, that it's when, we're all going to get hit. Pause, side story, because I chase rabbits. I don't know, 15 years ago, I was out at RSA and sat in Robert Mueller, the former FBI, director of FBI's talk, and he was talking about they went over to China to get some espionage data back for Ford. And I'm using the wrong names, so humor me. Went over to get some data back for Ford, and when they came back, they said, here you go, Ford. Here you go, Chevrolet. Here you go, Coca-Cola. Here you go, HCA. And none of these people knew that they were missing their data, right? Only one thought they were missing their data, and they brought their data back to them. So I want to talk to you about the if and when. If we really do, and the rest of the night tonight, what I'd like for you to do is for the rest of tonight, for this talk, is you'll just humor me and think about the if portion of this. It's tomorrow, or let's say it's Monday morning. If I tell you Monday morning when you come in, you are either going to be the one telling your boss that we've just had an event, a ransomware event or a breach, right? Or you are the boss and you're going to get that message on Monday morning that you've had a ransomware or breach, right? Everything we're going to talk about tonight changes. Perspective changes, right? We're not talking about the things we should be doing to avoid it, because that's what we're all focused on. Let's be truthful, right? We got a lot of people talking about defense, right? Defense. And then we got these other side people going, oh, it's time to take offense, and we got to go offense, right? It's time to sit back and think about this from a perspective of if tonight we're talking about that it has happened, let's talk about the things that we want to make sure that before we walk out of this room, we've got absolutely locked down. Because right now, if I talk to you from that viewpoint that on Monday morning, you're going to have to tell your boss, or you're going to be the boss that's told you've had an event, what's the first thing on your mind, right? You see where I'm going with this? I'm trying to help you with your 5. By the way, the end in mind, it's going to happen. Average cost of a breach in 2023, we don't have 24's numbers yet, $4.8 million. We can assume, everybody nod, that it's going to be north of $4.8 million, so it's a major event. So let's talk about our focus priorities based on that lens. I talk a lot about, you've heard the old saying, walk a mile in another man's shoes. I would say maybe pick up their glasses and try on their lenses and see how that fits for you. See if you can see through their lenses for a second. So if you ask me, Monday morning, you've got to know that there was a breach, or you've got to tell somebody that there was a breach. What's the first thing that you want to focus on? Besides, I didn't do it. I'd want to make sure I could survive the event. I'd want to make sure that on Tuesday, my company was still there, right? And on Wednesday, and in a month from now, and a year from now, my company is still there. So I would want to focus on survival. And I know that some of the engineers in the room, the techs in the room, are going to say, oh, this is boring. We're talking about basics. But I've got a point to this madness, and I want to share some stories with you that helps maybe reframe perspective for you. So if it were me, I'd make sure that I could survive the event. I'd make sure I have things like a backup. What do you say of that, Jeremy? Everybody's got backups. This is 2025. I agree. We all have backups, right? You guys probably heard the story of the flood in Nashville. You guys remember this? Several years ago, Nashville flooded. Cumberland River backed up. There was a big thing, and it flooded the streets of Nashville, went into the buildings, down to the basements. I had more than one would be bad, but I had more than one company come to me and say, this is my backup tape. It's all I have left. Everything else is underwater. Help me restore my company from this. First of all, this is an old DLT tape, and it's hard, and I had to go buy eBay tape readers because, right? Believe it or not, everybody's still got old tapes. But they gave me this tape. It said Tuesday on it, right? Because it was Tuesday, because what do? Tape pops out, blah, 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 right? And I buy the reader, and I stick that tape in only to find that there is absolutely nothing on that tape. They never tested it. He goes, Jeremy, it kicked out every single day. We religiously grabbed that. That was Tuesday's tape. I've got Wednesdays and Thursdays. Brought me every single tape that he had in his library. Nothing on the tape, guys. So, if it was Monday and I know I'm going to walk into a ransomware event, I'd sure like to make sure that my backup actually works. And here's a really simple, easy way. Here's your life hack. Here's what I do. Once a month, once a quarter, once a week, however much you want to do it, I go into a nested folder, about 6 folders deep on my server, and I delete a file. And I name that file, and I send an email to my IT team and say, replace that file for me. I'd like it done in the next hour. If you have good backups, that file can get replaced, right? But if they come back to you and go, we can't figure out. I'll go you a step further. Let's say you have in your line of business, you have what we call the golden database, or you have a database that has everything. If that database went down for an hour or a minute or a day, you'd be hosed. How about having them delete that database and put it back? I know I just heard the pucker factor go, right? Don't delete my database, even in a test. Can you restore it, right? So this is not just about, do we have backups? This is about, do we have backups that we would bet our careers and our lives and our families on? Right? You see where I'm going with this? Insurance, same thing. Had a lot of companies that I've dealt with over the years that had a cyber event only to find out that the insurance they thought they had was not adequate and did not cover ransoms, or did not cover legal, or did not cover because they just had a rider, they got a check mark, right? Did you have the necessary insurance to pay for the ransom, to help you get through this, to survive the event, right? It's time to have some conversations with your insurance guys to make sure that you ask those questions. Can I survive an event? Will you pay the ransom? At what level will you pay? Right? Have plans established. In the military, we talk about 2 is 1, 1 is none, which means if you plan for one thing, you're planning for failure. If I have one way out, I have no way out. Because guess what? What's the law that always comes to find us? Murphy always finds us, Murphy's Law, and the one thing you had planned fails. So have business continuity plans, have disaster recovery plans. And everybody, again, I see some looks, well, guys, we got that. We've done some tabletops even. Have you done real world testing? Have you had anybody else come in and test it with you or walk you through it or test yours for you? If I wake up this morning and my tooth is hurting, I am not going to go downstairs in my Craftsman toolbox and grab my drill and start working on my tooth. I'm not going to hand it to my wife and say, hey, would you get in there and see what you can do? I'm not going to hand it to my buddy, right? I'm going to go find a trusted expert that this is what they do, and I'm going to ask them to work on my tooth. Likewise, when it comes to survival and making sure that you can survive Monday, right? Have somebody come test your plan with you. Too many times I've sat in the room and they go, oh, this is good, but you're missing this and this and this. And you don't have anything in here about PR. I'm like, what do you mean PR? Why do I need PR? Right? Surviving an attack is not just the ability to back up. The only thing that impacts you when you have an attack is not just the ability to get your data back. It's public confidence, if you're publicly traded, if it's your clients, if you have to disclose to your clients because you live in a state where you have to disclose to your clients, right? It's the ability to weather that event. So have somebody that does this for a living, that these, again, guys, I'm going to tell you that if you were to call in, and I heard there's some people here that actually do this, we've got consultants in the room. If you were to call in a consultant, we're not talking about order of magnitude of $500,000. We're talking about a $10,000 assessment, right? $10,000 to sit down with you, or $5,000 to sit down with you and spend a day testing your table, testing your disaster recovery plan or your incident response plan, or a couple days. They're an expert in it. They've seen them. They've done tens of thousands of these, and they go through them. Let me ask you a question. If you have to pay, go back to my other slide, $4.8 million or $10,000, which one would you rather pay? Every time, all day, right? Cyber fact, 60% of the people that are attacked to go out of business. These are not my facts, right? So when I tell you something, I'm not just telling you because I think it's something that you should do. 60% of all businesses that are hit go out of business. Sometimes it's because they don't have the ability to restore, and they don't have the money to pay for the ransom. Sometimes it's because they were damaged so much in the public that they lost all their clients, right? Sometimes, I mean, we don't have to, I had the pleasure of talking with some of the Truist guys. They can weather a lot more than some of our smaller businesses can, right? Sometimes you lose 10 clients and you're done, right? So I'm not going to go back to the previous slide to say, when I say these things are things we should consider in our top 5, right? Not just that you have them. Yes, check mark. Too many times we have this check mark mentality of, yes, well, I've got a backup. We've got backups. I've got somebody that's got backups. I've got someone for that. I've got a business plan. I think I know what I do. What's Mike Tyson say about a plan, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? How well do you depend on your plan? How, you know, that repetition, right? Muscle memory. If you go through an event and you've done tabletop exercises 2 or 3 times a year, and you guys have played out every known scenario, if and when you do get hit, and I'm telling you, I've worked with companies that have done this, they say, Jeremy, no one wants to go through this, but at least we kind of had a path and we kind of knew what we were going to expect, and it played right out like we expected it to. The next thing, end user training and accountability. Notice I said training and accountability. Too many times we focus on training, and if I ask everybody to raise their hands right now, if your company has cyber training at your company, probably most of you have some version of checkmark box training at your company, right? Meaning especially if you're regulatory, some of you are regulatory and you are required to do these things, but too many times we just put a check mark. Yes, we trained our people, we got a training program. This is another opportunity to not get the drill out and drill your own tooth. You guys are smart people, right? You work with smart people, but having somebody else come in and train your people, it's like telling your kids to do something, right? I told my son something, hey, you need to, if you want to hit this shot, you're going to have to line your hands up better on the ball. You're going to have to line your, and comes home one day, he's like, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I was able to solve this. Coach told me today, if I just line my hands up on the ball, I've been saying that for 6 months, son. But when somebody else tells your kids, right, they listen to them. Same for your employees, same for your people. If you bring somebody else in and you make it intentional, they're going to listen. And more importantly, having that extra set of perspective, that fresh set of perspective, right? If I tell you it's scary, if I'm the CEO and I tell you don't do it, this is scary, you're going to ruin it, and somebody else comes in and gives you a lot of data that I don't have and a lot more data on what's going on, and they give you specific examples, you might take a lot more away from that. So this is another opportunity to not drill your own tooth. Bring in experts to help you train, right? Second part of this is accountability. Without accountability, if you don't have skin in the game, you're not going to move the needle, guys. So consider accountability. You guys saw the screen that I did 10 years at Pinnacle as their CISO. Knock on wood, did not have, I don't know why I'm doing that because I'm not going to get them in any trouble anymore, but I didn't have a single event while I was there, right, for that 10 years. And it's not because I was a smart guy or that I was better than anything else, it's because I was able to keep laser focused on the things that matter and move the needle. And that's what I'm sharing with you tonight is how I move that needle, right? One of the ways we move this needle is, and I cannot take claim for this, the CEO did this before I got there. They implemented, Pinnacle is a really good company. They're all about their top fortune places to work for, all this stuff. They only have one thing that they do that's detrimental to their people. One thing, only one thing. And that is if you fail a phishing test, whether it be one that was done by the inside or you fail a phishing test by real world, you lose a portion of your bonus. Up to 10% of your bonus. Right? Furthermore, if you continue to fail, you lose things like access to the internet or access to email, right? Terry Turner, the CEO of that company, will tell you that he said, I hated to do it, but I could not get anyone to listen, and I could not move the needle until I put skin in the game for them, right? And when they thought about clicking on that link, they go, oh, I might lose 10% of my bonus. My wife will kill me if we don't get that pool. That's skin in the game, right? That's a cautionary, it's that thing we teach our kids, is you just got to touch the burner, right? But if it's not my burner, right? If I keep clicking on links and it just hurts you, if you fail me, give me a swat on the hand, tell me bad boy, if you don't stop clicking on those links, But you got to transfer this accountability to them. There are other ways to do it without taking their money. I put them up here. There's some things like put them in a browser isolation group, which means if they click, after they've clicked on one, they're in a new browser isolation group, which just puts pain on them. Every time they click on a link now, they get to see the page, but they can't interact with it, right? Or literally remove the links from their emails. Say, I'm sorry, this is your second offense. From now on, you get no more links in your emails. We removed it. It'll say, this link was removed. And you say, I wish I could have it. You have to tell the person, hey, could you tell me what it was? Because I had to have mine removed. Consider these things. I'm not telling you this is the recipe. I'm telling you these are the ingredients. You got to make your own recipe, right? But I'm telling you that the key to success is accountability. You've got to get your end users in line accountable if you want to move the needle, right? Now, why do I say that? Not my data, not my facts. This is the Verizon data breach report. It says 68% of all breaches involved a human element. Another 28 involved human errors, right? Do you have peer groups? Do you have peer responsibility when somebody puts a change in? Do you always have to have a peer review that? Because we do at our company. If one engineer makes a change, the other one has to be, they cannot get that approved. They cannot hit save until another peer looks over their shoulder. And I can't tell you the number of times, I'm borderline dyslexic as well, that they swapped an IP address, just 2 digits. And I've been in a company before where 2 digits got swapped, and that happened to be the gateway, and they routed all traffic out a different gateway, which happened to be some executive's machine. And all of a sudden, his machine went ground to the ground and all internet traffic stopped, right? If you add those two up, it's pretty scary. It's like 92, 96, right? 90, something like that, 96, 86%, something like that. 96%, yeah. I think the point here being, you can move the needle. You can move the needle here. This is absolutely, if you do the things that I just said and you put training play. Let's say we only got 10% efficacy. Let's say our training programs only got 10% and we had 58% in our organization. Let's say we moved that needle 20%. This is a real place where you can turn dollars into dollars, right? Because if I don't train my people and I fall into 68, what's my number? 4.8 million? Was that the number on the previous slide? That's my new number, 4.8 million. That's my reality. So I can spend $10,000, $15,000 training people to come in and train my people twice a year. Again, simple math. Do I want to pay $15,000 or do I want to pay 4.8 million? Where's your focus? Visibility. This single thing here moved the needle for me personally when I went into the banking world was visibility. And I would tell you that every time I mentor or talk to a company, we go in and meet with them, this is by far one of the easiest layups that we do not pay attention to, especially on the CISO engineer side, CIO side, right? This is getting visibility to the people that matter and getting the right data into their hands, right? I'm going to give you an example. They've told me I can share this, but at Pinnacle there's 4,000 employees. And on any given month at Pinnacle, the 4,000 employees had 7 million emails bound for their boxes. 7 million incoming emails every single month headed to 4,000 people. The tools that I put in place, right, allowed me to deliver how much do you think to their, instead of 7 million, how much do you think I actually delivered? 1.5 million. 5.5 million emails per month were set aside. I delivered 1.5 million emails, And out of that 1.5 million emails that I delivered to 4,000 people, roughly 1% was still active threats. 1,500 bad guy emails still got to my end users. I tell you this example for a couple reasons. Just in telling you that data, right, you guys can already start to make some decision points. Number one, I told them they had a problem. And this is the level at which you have a problem, Mr. CEO. When I tell you I need budget to fix cybersecurity, when I tell you I need budget to protect us, I need you to understand the order of magnitude. We're not talking about tens of thousands. We're talking about 7 million emails every single month. Every 30 days, this is how many. I went on to say, I started showing him attacks against our firewalls in the millions, and then I showed him which countries were attacking us. Do you think I got their attention when I started to put those numbers in front of them? When I said to him, I'm now delivering 1,500 bad guy emails still to your inbox, what do you think he said to me? Holy cow. What do we do? How do I stop that? I said, we don't. The only way we can affect that is to go to the end user and fix the end user, because there's not any, I can keep throwing shiny boxes at this, and maybe I'll get it down to 700. But again, go back to the previous statement. How many emails does it take for me to be in the news on Monday? So unless I can get these emails all the way down to 1, unless I can keep buying enough shiny boxes and the next new anomaly and everything else that comes out, I can't get it down to 1. So what am I left with? Where should I put my focus? On training my end users, because they're the ones that I've got to now detect when a bad guy email comes in their inbox. This is one small example of getting the right data to the right people to make the right decisions, getting visibility of what your problems are. Many times I talk to people and they say, man, feel like I'm pushing this rope uphill. I feel like nobody's listening to me. I feel like Don Quixote, right? I'm just charging windmills, man. I'm just charging windmills. That's all I'm doing. Nobody's listening to me. If you put the right data in the right people's hands, I promise you they'll listen, because in 2025, our CEOs, and for all the CEOs in the room, we no longer get to have this head in the sand syndrome. We can't say, oh, this is not my problem. I've got a guy for that. That's why you make the big bucks. We don't get to say that anymore, because sure, he makes the big bucks, and sure, he's going to be the first one you're going to fire, not to be pointing at you, that guy, because he's walking in. You're going to be the one gets fired, sure, but is he still going to take the $4.8 million hit? Is he still going to be the one that's in the news and maybe possibly lose his clients? Right? So CEOs and C-level people now have to understand, and they're now starting to perk up because they understand, yes, I've got a guy who makes the big bucks for that, and they'll be the sacrificial lamb, but we still got to waddle through $4.8 million conversation here. So make sure that you've got visibility to the right people at the right level. Make sure you've got a SIM. For those of you who are not regulated entities are required to have a SIM. Make sure this is one of those things, one of those needle movers, right? Where you get an ability to have a SIM that takes all of your critical logs from all the shiny boxes you bought, get all those logs to the SIM. Then you've got visibility in one spot where you can start to look at and have oversight. Sure, your firewall guys are out doing firewall things. Your email guys are out doing email things. Your endpoint guys are out doing endpoint things, and on and on and on, right? But then you have a secondary plan where you've got all those logs coming to another team where they're watching these logs and they're telling you about the other threats, and they're telling you, if they're watching them wisely, which one of those tools are having good efficacy and which ones are not. Which ones are sending more threats through and not blocking the threats and are not. So make sure you've got these primary components. You've got managed detection and response on your network. Regular gap analysis, not by asking your team, but again, by bringing in the experts. I spent, as you can imagine, in my lifetime, I've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on shiny boxes. I'm going to tell you tonight that one thing, if you could do one thing and one thing only, the one thing in my career that I've done that has moved the needle the most is bringing in a red team. I would rather get pantsed on my own terms when I got to prepare to wear my nice drawers. I'd rather get pantsed on my own terms than rather be pantsed in the news, right, by somebody else. I brought in Mandiant's red team, and I, again, had all the shiny toys and objects, That's not me, is it? Okay, somebody behind us. All right. Oh, it's in the chair all by itself. Okay. All right. This was pre-planned. So, that's Russia calling. Get that comrade off the stage, would you? Oh, they're probably looking for their phone. They probably dropped it. If you're looking for your phone, we have it in here. Stream that out. All right, get it to him. There we go. Found my iPhone. There you go. Teamwork, that makes the dream work. So, gap analysis. I brought a red team in, and I was sharing this with one of you out in the hallway. I brought a red team in, and they found, I can't tell you all the things they found, and they didn't find like crazy things, but they were able to come in and point out things, for example, minor thing, but it makes you go, things that make you go, right? He said, they were telling me how they got to this one. So I said, wait a second, tell me again how you got from this point to this point? It was, we just RDP'd into it. I said, no, you can't. We blocked RDP on our network. We put a policy in place. We trained everybody. We took the programs off. We burned them into the gold image. You can no longer, right? He said, but this is not traffic traversing your firewall, right? What's going to stop me? We had a tool that we just ran RDP protocol, 3389 traffic, and we just jumped from one to the other, right? Interesting. I didn't know that. And again, how many things have you put in place and you believe that they're in place and you assume that they're still in place, only to find out that some new guy came in last year and he didn't know that. He's not really paying attention to training, and he just went in and did it himself, right? Had one guy fired up a wireless access point underneath his desk because that's what he's done at every company he's ever been at, right? Hopefully you have tools that catch that, but you get my point, right? Bring in a red team, bring in an expert. Again, I mentioned Mandiant. I'll tell you right now, the order of magnitude, you're going to spend $50,000 to $100,000 with Mandiant to have them come in and do that for you. But again, simple math, $50,000 to $100,000 or $4.8 million. Which one would you rather spend? Which would you rather do? I then went on to a series of, I then brought in the next year, instead of a red team, I brought in a ransomware team who built custom ransomware for me to run ransomware on my business, right? Obviously not the, send it off to China, but I ran ransomware inside to make sure that all my tools, and one of the things that I started to do was I was not only testing my tools and my platforms, I started testing my people and the response times. Everything that I said I'm going to get, all those partners who said they would do what they said they would do, try that on a red team and see how that goes for you, right? Don't tell anybody, just have the red team come in. It'd be interesting. I actually went a little bit further than that, and I tested something I'm also going to tell you. I tested my third-party procedure, and I brought them under the guise of, they were contractors working on an identity platform that I brought them underneath that, fake names and everything, to see if they could get through vendor processing. Interesting. Add visibility onto your board. This is not, again, I'm going to use air quotes because that's what we do. We use air quotes when that means we don't really do it, we just say we do it. If you're regulatory, you're required to have cybersecurity expertise on your board. This is, again, one of those things that I'm telling you, don't just air quote it, don't just say we do it. You need to have cybersecurity expertise on your board because you need, just like in that red team exercise, you need somebody else from the outside to bring a fresh set of eyes and perspective to tell you the things that they're doing, to tell you the things that you should be doing, etc. Make sure that you have counsel. One of the things, again, I'm giving you one of the things that I did to move the needle, and it blew everyone's mind, was I started a peer group. I was new to banking, as I told you, when I took that role, and I was not sure I know about cyber, but I wasn't sure about what other banks were doing, so I just called up a couple of CISOs I knew at other banks. I was like, hey, I'm going to be drinking coffee at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, and I'm going to open up this bridge, and I'm going to talk about some of the struggles I'm having in cybersecurity at our bank. And if you'd like to join, next thing you know, I got 10 CISOs from 10 banks, and we're all talking. It's like, hey, are you guys doing this with this vendor? Have you had this experience with this vendor? Who's doing this with this, right? And the CEO of my company found out and said, hey, I heard you're talking to the enemy. So what do you mean? He said, I heard you're talking to the other banks, the competition. I said, from where I sit, that's not competition. I'm not competing with them at the cyber level. Sure, our business lines are competing, but we don't talk about business lines. We talk about cyber, right? And he opened his eyes. He's like, wow, that's actually pretty good, right? We got things like FSISAC. We got other trade sharing. Talk to your peers, right? Don't have such an ego that says you think you're the baddest CISO or the baddest cybersecurity guy on the planet. Talk to your peers. Walk a mile in their shoes. Ask them what they're doing, because you're going to gain insight. And by the way, brotherhood. How many of you feel like that being in cybersecurity is like being at one of those user groups? Welcome, Jeremy. Been fighting a good fight. Welcome, right? That's why you guys are here, right? Ask your peers. Ask them what they're doing. Know the cybersecurity model, maturity model, and your posture and your score. Again, we're talking about the things we should focus on, the 5 things, right? Do you know? Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you mid-sentence. Is that BSIM or some other security model, cybersecurity model?
There's tons out there that I would say there's frameworks. We got frameworks like NIST and things like that. But there's a cybersecurity maturity model, scale of 1 to 5. How mature are you, right? Okay. And so know what that score is, and know what your score is. And hey, I'm a 1. It doesn't matter if you're a 1 out of 5 or a 2 out of 5. What matters is what you're planning to do this year to move yourself from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. The point is knowing where you're at and knowing that you've got to, because again, those frameworks and those things like the cybersecurity maturity model, they don't care about the shiny boxes in most cases, right? They're talking to you about, are you doing the right things? Are you putting the right components in place? Do you have a vulnerability management platform? Are you, these are the things that they're talking about. So again, this is just more examples of visibility. I'm not going to read the slide to you. Down at the right, it tells you this is M-Trends, Mandiant, who I told you before. They put out the M-Trends report. Some of you probably know this. The M-Trends report is a report that they do where all the clients that they helped throughout the year with cybersecurity events, they collect all of that data and then they put out an M-Trends report. Very important. It's a good read, because this is real world data from companies that have actually had cybersecurity events, right? And then they tell you, based on everything we looked at, all the people that we talked to and all of the events we saw, these are our recommendations, right? And you can see they line up with some of the things I've already told you about: tabletop exercises, maintain and engage red teams and test your defense, do your gap analysis, test your ability to detect the latest exploits, et cetera, right? So this is just more confirmation of things that we should be doing. 24/7 cohesive coverage. This goes back to the 2 is 1, 1 is none concept, and this is another area where most companies fail. And if you go back to that 60% of the businesses impacted went out of business, it's because they were hit in the most vulnerable spot, and that is after hours coverage, right? Again, if I was to ask you to raise your hands and say who has after hour coverage, and you'd all raise your hand, and I'd say how many of that is just one guy on call? Most of you keep your hand up, right? Right? Well, I've got a guy. He's on call, and he's the most inexperienced. He's the cheapest guy. He's the one that's willing to work third shift, and we hope he's not sleeping. And if the fit hits the shin, he wakes other people up. Right? Does that sound familiar? I'm singing a page out of your book, right? And I've got some people nodding with some very large companies in here. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to show you something. Malwarebytes 2024 State of Ransomware report tells you that the most commonly attacked time period is from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. and on U.S. holidays. Okay? Make sure that you have coverage. And coverage does not mean, right, one guy sitting there. I think of, the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. You got the one sheepdog coming out and, clocking out, and the coyotes checking in. They say hi to each other, and right. Avoid check marks. You guys know, hopefully, as you've seen as I'm talking tonight, there are items where we can get a check mark and we can say, as the CISO or as the security guy or as the COO, we can say, look, we got on-call covered. We got after hours. Don't worry about it. We got that. My question to you tonight is, do you? Again, I'm going to take you back to where we started this exercise. Monday morning, you're going to walk in to a breach, or you're going to walk into somebody's going to tell you how to breach. Did you have the right coverage, or is this on you? Right? Did you have coverage, or did you have coverage? Because the reason why they attack from 1 to 5 is because they get the largest window. because it's all about timing, right? They get the largest window and with the greatest chances. Matter of fact, if you could dig into that report, and I suggest you read it, it will say that in most cases, the actual infiltration happened during the day. You know, sometimes during the day or during the early, they wait until 1 a.m. because that's your weakest moment. That's our weakest moments as humans when we tend to be sleeping, but it's also your weakest, you're going to have the lowest response time from 1 to 5, right? So you say, what do we do? Well, I'm already going to, I always ruin my slideshows by telling you what's coming next, but we already have a problem in the United States. You guys already know this, right? 500,000 open jobs in cybersecurity to start with. And then we've got to try to recruit those guys and put them on third shift. And oh, by the way, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So if you're going to adequately coverage, we've done a study on this, if you're going to have adequate coverage of the 3 shifts, including weekends, because that throws a wrench in there, right? You have to have a minimum of 10 people. Because again, you cannot have one person, because what happens is one person needs to do what? Go to the bathroom. Or get sick. Take a vacation, right? So you can't have one guy working second shift and one guy working third shift, because eventually that person's going to need to, or he's going to fall asleep. And who's going to be there to bump him awake and make sure you got accountability? You got to have at least 2 people on every shift, right? And you got to have people that are, and you can't work these people all day, every day, 12-hour shifts and things like that. So you got to have rotations. You got to give them off. They're not going to want to stay there forever, because nobody grows up and says, someday when I do all the training and I get all of my certifications, if I could just work the graveyard shift forever. I could get the best wife and kids ever. My life would be great, right? They say, I'll do that for 6 months and then I'm going to go somewhere else. So you already got a shortage. You already got people. It's hard for you. Is that what you do, by the way? Or do you do something else? Your company do something else? You're going to have to find a partner. You're going to have to find trusted partners to do this. And you're going to have to make sure that they themselves are not checkmark partners, right? That only want to alert you to the problem. They don't want to actually stop the problem in the middle of the night. Because again, does you no good to have tons of great people at night that, oh, by the way, sent you an email that says, hey, we caught it. You got a bad guy on your network. Caught it. That's 11:57. Good job, us. And then you get in at 8 a.m. and be like, oh, nobody stopped it on the server? No, we don't want you to know it, so we can't really block it. So plan for success. I told you there are 500,000 jobs filled. This is a fact from the IBM Cost of a Data Breach report, 26% increase in cybersecurity skills shortage over the prior year. It's not getting better, it's getting worse, right? We're training them. You've got 5 great colleges here within 100 miles that have all got cybersecurity programs, right? We're training them, but we can't train them fast enough. So I've already told you, avoid checkmark partners. Make sure that you don't just get a lot of these people, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but a lot of these people, they're an EDR provider, and oh, by the way, yeah, you can, for an extra $10,000 a year, you will watch this 24/7, so you can get a checkmark that we've got a 24/7 partner. But do you get down in the details of it, and do you ask them, do they actually block that threat? And what if it's not just something that can be auto-blocked by automatic or automated blocking? Do you have humans watching this every night and that will wake up and work with my team to stop this threat? Those are questions you want to ask. I think we're close. The last couple slides. Again, this one is one that is a sleeper and is one that you probably are not thinking about, or some other people in your organization are thinking about, but you've got to be thinking about, and this is third-party risk. We've had an attack surface change to where the attackers are no longer coming at the major enterprises. I mean, they still are. You've got nation states still coming at them, but I'm saying if you look at the majority of the attacks that are happening, it's supply chain attacks. They're going to go down the road. They don't want to go to you that's spending tens of millions of dollars on cyber. They'll go to one of your HVAC vendors that's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even tens of thousands of dollars, right? Or zero, right? We all remember the Target hack, HVAC vendor, right? Marriott bought Starwood, and Starwood had already had a ghost in the system. Equifax, SolarWinds, we know all these, right? I have had multiple clients tell me this year already that they have had to disclose to their clients a cybersecurity event that had nothing to do with them. Because of now all the notification laws and everything that's coming out. They had a partner that told them, hey, the software you're using, we just want to let you know, think SolarWinds. We had a breach, we want to let you know. And so you, by state law, North Carolina has one, you have to notify your clients, right? And I promise you, in every single case, this is the frustration, your client doesn't care who that other party is. Your client pays you. Your client is your client and believes in you, and they could care less who you're using, right? And they fail to hear the part that says, nothing on my network was compromised. It was the other guys. They don't care. So it's just like you had the same problem, and you lose clients over that, and you lose face over it. So what can I do? You can be intentional with your third-party vendor program. You're going to have to start to group them. Again, they can't boil the ocean. We can't do this with every single vendor we've got, but group them into categories. Group them into critical, high, and low, and then do things on your critical. Go out and visit your criticals once a year. Especially if they got a SOC 2 Type 2, great, go out and take a look at that. Or if they don't have a SOC 2 Type 2, which a lot of them don't, believe it or not, you got to say, all right, then if you don't have one, then I'm coming on site and we're going to do an audit on our own. I'd like to see this. You say you do this, show it to me, right? I've done this with data centers before. But group them, make sure that what we started doing is we started writing it into our contracts, right? We started putting all the verbiage into our contracts with them that says, you agree to do the following things, and this has to do with notification of me, this has to do with making sure that you've got vulnerability and patching programs, making sure that we just wrote all of this into our contracts to where we'd have legal bound that our third parties would have to meet minimal requirements. And we started asking them similar questions of ourselves. Do you guys have third party? Somebody watching your stuff at night? Do you have somebody that's actually, 24/7? We started asking them those questions. Not my fact. Verizon data breach. 15% of breaches involve third parties.
I think it's a low number.
I agree. I think, again, these are reported, right, and confirmed. So, I leave you tonight with this. Where are your personal and professional priorities? What are you focused on? Are you moving noise? Are you increasing noise? Or are you moving the needle? Again, I started this with personal and professional. From the time your child is born until the time they leave the house to go to college, you have 939. It's getting me. 4 kids. 939 weeks. 939 weeks to impact your child's life. From the time they're born until the time they leave. If you take out the years that they were toddlers and not understanding what you're telling them, and you take out those years, you're down into the 700s. 700s, and I translate that. Let me give you again a different perspective. 939 weekends. 939 opportunities to make a difference in a human's life for the next generation. We get so busy, I'm telling him, notice where I'm pointing. We get so busy, especially in the cyber world, because guess what? We're superheroes, right? Right? We're literally fighting the bad guys. We are literally standing in the gap every single day I'm fighting a noble cause. I'm fighting not only for me, but I'm fighting for my clients. I'm fighting every single day, right? And who takes it in the shorts? My family. Because Dad's always off doing something. He's always off, right? My kid said to me today when I left, I told him this morning before I got on the plane, I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And my little girl said, well, at least it's not, I'll see you next week. That hurts. I started this with, I typically do these things to tell myself, but what are you doing to move the needle in your personal and professional life? There's a saying that says, lack of discipline in one area of your life tends to equal lack of discipline in multiple areas of your life, right? So think about that. Think about how you're living your life, how you're choosing. Are you that January 1st, a New Year's resolution? Or can you laser focus? Can you dial in exactly what's going to move the needle in your life, professionally and personally? Set those things. Guys, the rest of that story is you're not just going to achieve 5, right? But you will achieve 5, and then you can go back to your list of 20 and pull some up. For every one you knock out, you pull one off the 20, and guess what? Eventually, the top 25 things you wanted to achieve in your life are done, right? So I'm challenging you tonight as we started this, as you're looking at where you're at professionally and personally, remember tactically versus strategically. Tactically, you're in the woods and you're headed north and you keep heading north and you're fighting the bad guys and you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. But if you could just peek above the trees, you could see that you're about to walk off a ravine on Monday. Right? if you could just peek above the canopy, you'd see that I probably want to take a different path. And that's my challenge to you guys tonight is use moments like this when somebody comes to talk to you that says, hey, I want to challenge my thinking. I want to look through a different set of lenses, and I want to figure out if I've got my eye on the ball. So I think I probably ran over, so I might not have time for questions, but I'll be around out back. I probably can take one or two questions if there's any. I mentioned earlier the most important guy in the room that wasn't in the room. Dylan Costello is standing in the back. He's the guy that is here on our behalf. He's the 5iron presence here in Raleigh. And he's got something important we're going to do, which is you're going to give away a bottle of bourbon?
I was.
Oh.
We drew the winner, and she was leaving, so I caught her as she was leaving. It was Beth McIntyre.
Okay, Beth McIntyre. Congratulations. Beth McIntyre won it. But as I mentioned, we like to live in the communities that we serve. We're not just here to take. I came out here tonight to spend this time with you to earn a right at your table, to earn a right as a relationship, to earn a right to talk to you. If you'd like for me or my company or my team to come out and do this with you personally, or if there's somebody in your company who says they've got to hear this, my CEO's got to hear this, I'll come and do it with you again. I'll spend that time because it's worth it, right? This is how we move the ball. This is how we sharpen each other. This is how we make a difference. So see Dylan tonight, give him your card. I'll come out, I'll spend that time with you, I'll invest it. I'm not, again, about just getting up here and telling you, hey, we'd like to take your business. I'd like to earn a right to maybe win some business and be a partner of yours. So if you enjoyed this tonight, send me a note. See me behind. If there's something you think I need to add to it, I'm always looking to learn myself and get better. But thank you again for the opportunity to be here and spend time with you guys tonight.